EMP Series Revolution, Episode 4. Captain Arthur Lewis was the section chief for Section 7. He had been with them since Nunez founded the organization years earlier. The two had attended training at Quantico together and became fast friends. They stayed in touch after graduation, and a few years later, when Nunez obtained funding to start Section 7, he immediately contacted Lewis to recruit him. Captain Lewis arrived with a contingent of 10 men. Carl had met him a couple of times a few years earlier when he and Nunez were in Syria working an op together. After a brief exchange of introductions and pleasantries, the men went to work. Captain Lewis told his men to check in with the station chief for assignments, and he and Carl went inside to discuss matters. Carl told Lewis about Frank and explained to him that freeing him was his top priority. Lewis hesitated and told Carl that it was too risky right now. They had to concentrate their efforts on diffusing the current situation with the military and continuing the mission of moving the region forward toward liberation. That was unacceptable to Carl. He understood Lewis's concern and focus on the overall mission, but he wasn't willing to sacrifice his humanity for a mission. He reasoned that if they compromised who they were just to achieve their goals, then in the end they would lose themselves, as so many before them had done. This was one key facet of who Carl Fairley was that made him essentially different from most other company and military men. He understood why Lewis had to be the way he was. Deep down, he was glad that there were men like Lewis in the fight, men who would give up themselves for the cause. This was also one of the primary reasons that Carl had turned down command opportunities with the company so many times in the past. No, he told Lewis, I need to help Frank get out. I would appreciate any support you can offer, but one way or another, I'm going to get him out, even if it means that you no longer have a place for me in this organization. Lewis responded, Carl, you are who you are. In many ways, I envy your convictions, even if you are a constant pain in my six. No, Carl, you'll always have a place in this group, as long as I'm running things anyway. Run your plan down for me. If I can help you, I will. But you know that the mission at hand has to be my top priority. Yeah, I do know that, Chief, and I appreciate any help you can offer me. Carl told Lewis about his church family and Hollis and Nate Bellows. He assured Lewis that they could be counted on when push came to shove. He also told him that there might be other area men willing to help. Then he ran down his plan to free Frank for Lewis. Greg, Dalton, and Richie were at the trading post loading supplies into the truck. The military guards on the post and platform were double what they normally were. As Steve loaded the last of the supplies into the bed of the truck, Hollis Bellows passed by on the platform. As he walked toward the post entrance, he paused to address Greg. Hey, Greg, he said. Greg nodded. Hollis, how's it going, my friend? Hollis told Greg that he was in possession of some supplies that belonged to Carl, and whenever it was clear, he would drop them off for him at the church. He told Greg that he had spoken to the other men that were at Carl's farm the day Stillman was killed. He said that he had several men willing to do whatever it would take to help Carl, and a few others who were willing to help as long as they could remain in the shadows. Greg sneered. Real patriots, huh? Hollis interjected. Don't judge them, Greg. They're civilians, always have been. They are offering to help in the capacity that they are comfortable with. Yeah, no, I get it. We appreciate any help we can get. Then Hollis told Greg that when they needed to contact him and the others, all they had to do was leave a note with his name on it on the community bulletin board at the trading post. Greg nodded and said, "Watch your back, Hollis. Don't trust anyone." Hollis nodded and rode off. Steve rolled into the lower parking lot at the dam just before dawn. He shut off the lights, killed the engine, and coasted to a stop. He got out of the truck, shouldered his rifle, and signaled to the two men with him to follow him as he began to ascend the trail up toward the top of the dam. Once on top, they scanned the wooded area on the downriver side of the dam. Josh Timothy tapped Steve on the shoulder and pointed to a small wisp of smoke coming from an open area just off the trail adjacent to the river. The third man was a recently discharged soldier who joined the group several weeks earlier. Steve told him to go back down to the truck and watch the point where the trail opened up into the lower parking lot. He was to wait there for them and be ready to move out. Steve and Josh skirted around the side of the dam where the spillway was located and walked through the woods to where they saw the smoke. When they approached the camp, Frank's daughter saw them first and pointed them out to her mother. Frank's wife, Sharon, picked up the shotgun leaned against the tree near her and started to point it at Steve and Josh. Steve put his hand out toward her. "Whoa, ma'am, it's okay. We aren't going to hurt you. I'm Steve. This is Josh. Carl Fairley sent us to check in on you." She held into the shotgun. "Carl Fairley? He's alive? Where is he?" "We were staying at the farm in the guest house, but after what happened, they all took off. When the patrol picked up Frank and he didn't come back, I knew we had to leave. They have Frank, the captain and his men. They took him." "Yes, I know, ma'am. Carl's working on a plan to get him out. You and your daughter aren't safe out here. You are all welcome to come with us. We will keep you safe until we can get your husband out of the military's custody. Come stay with us at the church. I promise you'll be safe there." Sharon lowered the shotgun and looked over at her daughter. She knew going with them was her best chance for survival, but she didn't fully trust them. "I'm not giving you this shotgun, so don't try to take it from me." Steve smiled. "Wouldn't think of it, ma'am. After all, every girl needs a good shotgun nowadays." She smiled slightly and nodded. They all walked out to the lot where the truck was parked, and Marcus was waiting. In a barn on a homestead a few miles out of town, Hollis Bellows sat with a small group of area farmers. He addressed the group. "Gentlemen, you all know why I called you here today. What I'm about to tell you is very sensitive. You're all here because I know each one of you, and regardless of how you fall in this issue, I trust you all with my life. You know I was at the meeting at Carl Fairley's farm the other day, as were some of you. What happened there was tragic and unfortunate. Most of you that were not there know Carl well enough to know that things did not go down as Captain Crawford claims they did. Carl and the rest of us involved truly sought a peaceful resolution to the occupation issue. We wanted our community back from the military, that's true. Stillman ran over us with his oppression and corruption, and it needed to stop." "Yeah!" one of them shouted out. The others voiced their support, and there were even a few roars from some of the men. Hollis Bellows continued. "Stillman was out of control. Those of you that were there saw it firsthand. Now, if any of you choose not to get involved here, I understand. We all have families, and some of us may not be suited to this course of action, which is needed now. Carl wants everyone to know that it's important for everyone to make his own choice. Nobody will think less of you if you walk away. Your first priority naturally will be to your family. We get that. Anyone wanting to pull out should do so now." Hollis slowly scanned the small crowd, making direct eye contact with each man. In their eyes, he saw a unified commitment. These men were his neighbors and friends. They were fellow patriots. One of the men, Jim Turner, spoke up. "Hollis, I gotta be honest here. I'm scared. Scared for us and for our loved ones. When I think of what lies ahead and what it could mean for my children, well, I'm just scared." A couple of the men nodded. "But if I walk away, if you all have to fight this battle without me, when I have just as much at stake as everyone else here, well, how could I look at myself in the mirror? How could I look my kids in the eye? No, this is all of our fight. It has always been all of our fight, and until now we sat back and let Carl and a few others fight it for us. It's time to draw the line in the sand. This is where the rubber meets the road. Time to commit to stand and fight, or capitulate, and spend the rest of our lives on our knees. I'm in, Hollis. You let Carl know he's not alone. I, for one, will stand and fight with him." There were roars from the group. One of the other men yelled out, "What kind of country do we want our kids to grow up in, anyway? A country where they will be enslaved and made to conform to the master's will? Or a country where they can be free men?" The entire group erupted in a roar. Hollis Bellows spoke again. "Gentlemen, there are uncertain times ahead. I agree that we need to commit now. Much needs to be done. We need to unify in our efforts. This oppressive government force has pushed us to a point where we can no longer stand idly by. For the sake of a free society, for the sake of our children's futures, we must join the cause. We need to enlist good men, patriotic men, to fight alongside us. Whoever wishes to join us in this fight, make sure you understand what that means for you and your families. Make sure you understand the risks and the responsibilities that go with it. Be discerning in who you share this information with. Make sure you tell only those you trust with your lives, for that is exactly what you will be doing. Stay in touch with each other, gentlemen. We are all the only community we have. Keep the lines of communication open. Things will move quickly now. Carl's deputy, Frank, is being held by Captain Crawford. A plan is being drawn as we speak to free him. Be ready for the call to arms. Everyone do what you must do to prepare for what is coming. Thank you all, and God bless you." With those words, the group dispersed and went their separate ways. These men realized that in the establishment of the government in this new world order, that they could have a say in the formation of that government. They could have a part in the direction it would take. They also realized that to steer that new government in the direction that they believed it should go would not be easy. It would not come without cost, community cost, and personal cost. They understood that the easiest path, the path of least resistance, would be to merely go along to get along. They could live relatively peaceful lives under the control of the system that men like Major Stillman were building. They also understood, however, that the peace provided by that very system would be bought with the freedom of the entire community. They felt with every fiber of their being that sacrificing their personal and societal freedoms to gain that peace was not an option that any of them could live with. They chose instead to fight for their freedoms, to put everything they held dear to them on the line to secure their freedom and the freedom of their children and their children's children. They knew that the end result of that course would potentially be a freedom that could foster real peace. They also knew that even if they lost everything struggling to obtain it, that they could go into eternity, knowing that they had done all they could do to hold on to the freedoms and rights that were unalienable. The freedoms and rights that were granted to them by their Creator. They all knew full well there were things men could endure that were far worse than death. They all truly believed that to live without the basic God-given human rights that free men enjoyed was one of those things. No, they would not go quietly into totalitarian oppression. Each one of those men, those patriots, decided that evening, either separately or collectively, that they would fight and die if it be God's will, to hold on to their freedoms, to fight as their forefathers did, to help birth a nation built on the principles of God-granted freedoms of basic human rights. Thank you all for tuning in. God bless you. Please consider following me on Patreon and VidMe. Links for both are included in the description section of this podcast, as well as a link for my EMP Survival Series Book 1, Grid Down, available now on Amazon.com.